the women that I've been meeting. I've been enjoying the women that I've been meeting as well. Looking forward to what's to come. Thank
How
you.
about a couple sentences on your background, Jill?
Oh, okay. So my background, human resources, corporate training with a lot of larger organizations, and was very fortunate. I worked for UPS. I worked for Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, though I can't speak anymore, sorry. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, and also Toys R Us, a lot of corporations, but I've also vacillated a lot between education and corporate life. I've also trained, I was asked by a psychoanalyst to help her to deliver courses that have to do with life after retirement and things like that. And she often said to me, you should get involved in something that has to do with transitions. And you should probably like write some of your own courses and start delivering them, to the local adult education places. And so I actually came to TTN because a friend of mine that Darla had found had recommended me. So it was kind of the right timing, and I also just do a lot of paying it forward is one of my philosophies. I've been through a lot of transition in my life, a lot of loss, but it's all part of life, and being able to have to deal with it and to work through it. Was there anything that I missed, Carol? Was there something?
Oh, that's great. Okay. Every time people introduce themselves, I learn something new.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Jill, I wish I'd known that about the transition thing, because I felt like I really sold you hard all summer, and you were already in.
Yes. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Those courses.
So thanks, Jill, for the comprehensive history summary of you.
Thank you.
And sure. And there's supposed to be 3 guests. I'll mention their names if they do show up, so you know who they are. They would be Liz Anderson, Jill Hoffmans, and Ursula Vermillion. So if they show up, maybe we'll have them say something at the end. And now I get to turn it over to Carol Oswald.
Thank you. Hopefully these people haven't been trying to email me about not being able to get in. Nope, I don't see anything there. So, okay. I'm really pleased we were able to start off our year with a kind of a big picture talk about TTN, and we also want to talk about our chapter, because we've got some big plans for what we want to do this year. So let me just introduce you to Darla. Darla actually grew up in Texas. Somebody was asking me if I was a Southerner based on a family name.
Oh, Mara.
What?
Mara was clapping.
Grew up in Texas. She's lived in Massachusetts, California, Vermont. She spent a couple years in Cleveland, so she gets the Midwest. And now she shares her time between Brooklyn and northern New Jersey, having places in both. Darla's married to a psychologist named John, who's a leading authority on addiction. He's a professor of psychiatry and leads up the addiction services practice for a 32 hospital system in New York. She has 2 sons. Ben lives in Tel Aviv and is the father of her 2 grandchildren, who are 5 and 2. They still 5 and 2. Her younger son is named Cameron. He's an architect, and he lives really close by in Brooklyn, so she gets to see him a lot, which is great. Before joining TTN, Darla also worked with a lot of big companies. She was a C-suite executive who was in charge of marketing, communications, sometimes operations. Sounds like a perfect fit for her executive director role right now. And those companies included Fidelity Investments, State Street Bank, and Thomson Reuters. In between those jobs, she founded a consulting firm that she led for 8 years. And the group provided services in branding, messaging strategy, production of global meetings, and customer communications training. And some of her clients In that consulting were Viacom, Compaq, and JP Morgan Chase. And another one, Darla, that I keep forgetting to ask you about, the other company she mentioned was Ben and Jerry's. And I'm wondering if you have any special relationships still that we can leverage for some of our upcoming meetings, maybe.
That would be lovely. But I have to tell you, every time I went to meet with them in northern Vermont, I would leave the meeting space, start walking down the hall, crossing my fingers, and then I'd always hear pump, 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 pump steps. And it would be somebody with a box of ice cream for me to take home in ice. So it's like, what's that kind of ice that's not really ice, dry ice. Yeah. So it was amazing, but it was often like a graveyard flavor or a discontinued flavor. And so I couldn't fall in love with it because I couldn't buy it at a store. So,
but still, free ice cream.
But still, it was amazing. Yes.
Oh, man. In 2018, she did leave corporate life and got her certificate in coaching from Rutgers University and is a member of the International Coaching Federation. And we were so lucky to have her raise her hand when we needed to bring on a new executive director, and she started in May of last year. So since then, she's been on an adventure of looking at our organization and how we market ourselves, how we communicate who we are, and helping us to build a strategy for the next 20 years. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Darla's going to take you through some of that, so we can all get up to speed with where we are in TTN, and then we'll take some time to talk about where we want to go with our organization.
Thanks,
with our
Carol.
chapter. Yeah.
You sounded like you really know me, which you do. So I appreciate it. And I have to say, I've lived all over the country, like Carol said. Cleveland was my first place outside of Texas. I was newly married. I just finished undergrad school. We went to Cleveland because my husband was in grad school at Case Western. And I didn't have a winter coat. I didn't have boots. I didn't even know what cold was. And it was actually the coldest winter in history, I think, up until then, recorded history. I had 4 inches of ice on the inside of my windows in my apartment. And I remember going around, I had a little like heavy sweater and some high-heeled sandals. And I was going around up to my hips in snow drifts. So, because I couldn't afford to buy a coat or boots, but luckily I earned enough money to do that eventually. But I loved Cleveland and I love Ohio. And so I just want to say, I know where you are, and I've always wanted to come visit you in person. So I hope to do that pretty soon.
So Donna's in Cleveland right now, and that's where she moved from Cleveland to Columbus about 5 years ago. And Sandy Cahorn just piped in. Of course, she lived in Cleveland for, I don't know how many years you were up
My
there.
life.
Yeah.
1978. Let me guess. What year were you there?
I was there, let's see, 76, 77, 78. Yeah.
I know it well.
You nailed it.
Oh,
That was the year of the big blizzard that came through.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was darn cold.
that was the year, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
I
floor-
didn't know
the
you
floor
could
is
go
now
below
yours.
0. I had never heard of that.
Okay, the floor is now yours.
Okay,
Start talking.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I already said that. And Carol suggested that I bring some slides, which would just be a sort of an easy way to take you through the history. I'm so excited about talking with you about the future of you, but I'll take you through some things that you may know, you may not know, but just a short little slideshow. And I have to be abled to share my screen.
There you go. You're set.
Okay, thank you. And this is what I wanted to show you. All right. Really, this isn't going to take very long. But I do need to be able to change them. Oops. I think that's my first slide. Okay, that was a terrible start, but you can forgive me, I hope. So when we looked back at 2021, and we just did this in the board meeting a lot. in my mind, it was really about bringing us up to date, modernizing us, professionalizing certain things about us that we just hadn't had a chance to do before. And they really fall into three big categories. One is this AMS that you're hearing about constantly with the website in front of it. This system is amazing. It's, you know, it's not super fancy. It's frustrating us a little bit now because we're pushing it way beyond the limits of what anybody in the organization that is our vendor, way beyond the limits of what it used to do for other clients. They're actually learning something from us, but this is going to change our lives in a lot of ways. It puts everything in one spot. So we've got our database, we've got our communications center, we've got our whole financial processes center all in one place. And it's going to, for everybody who's running a chapter and working as a volunteer, it just takes so much of the manual labor and, hunting down Excel spreadsheets here and there. It's going to be wonderful. And we're already getting a lot of feedback from members who actually, my name was all over everything, as you've noticed. And so I'm getting flooded with emails from members. And I would say 20 people have said to me, I was going to let my membership lapse, but this whole new website is really getting me excited about being a member of TTN. It looks like, you got it together, and I'm excited. So that's wonderful. The financial management part is very simple in a way now, but we had 8 different bank relationships. We pulled everybody into Chase. Every chapter has its own account. We're using credit cards now instead of debit cards, and everything is, every chapter, like your chapter is confidential. No other chapter can see what you're doing. I can, but it allows us to really get really good reporting and kind of a consolidated picture of what's going on. And it's super simple and it's self-service. So a lot of things that, for example, in your chapter, you probably didn't worry about this so much, maybe you did, but it took forever to see, okay, I've got this income coming in, I've got these expenses going out. To really get a picture of how you were doing, you had to wait for this account reconciliation process. That happens daily now inside the AMS. It's an automatic thing you can peek in anytime you want. And the new branding, which you know about, it's brought us into a place that's fresh and alive, and I hope that it works. It certainly has changed the way that our website looks. When we talk about branding isn't just, the logo or the whole different color palette that we came up with. Brand is, as most of you know, or all of you know, is also about who you are, what you promise members, how you talk about yourself, where you show up. And this was one of the first projects we did mid to late spring, where every chapter contributed to writing a statement about why we exist. It seems like such a silly thing, if you think about it, because we have a mission statement and everything, but what's the elevator pitch of why you exist on the planet? And this is what the chapters came up with, and the board. And to me, it just makes so much sense. The TTN community brings women together so they can expand their lives and support and inspire each other across life's transitions. And as you know, in your chapter and in all the other chapters, that's actually what we do. We also created this value proposition, and value propositions are usually kind of not secret documents, but they're things that marketing people kind of keep in their pocket because you draw on it, the ideas from it for marketing, and you just want to make sure that the way you describe not why you exist, but why people should want to belong, it needs to be consistent. And this one, this language is all over the website now because I embedded it everywhere. We embedded it. But I'm thinking we should share this widely inside TTN. This was a very collaborative process, writing this, and it's, group writing is not always very easy. But Carol, you were very involved in this. We probably took 2 or 3 months to write this. And it feels right to me. And, we'll update it over time. We'll make it better. But whoops, I'm sorry, too many meetings today. But basically the highlights of it, as you can see, are, we're run by and for women with fulfilling life experiences. And we're going through transitions. And we're different from other organizations because, first of all, we have this expertise in helping women navigate these transitions. But even more than that, in addition to the expertise, and the expertise comes through workshops and speakers and other things, but it's also, we've got this gang of women who are all around us all the time to help us process what we learn about ourselves and process what's going on in our lives and just feel good about things. And we also have this new thing that we couldn't say in the past, which is that we connect both face-to-face and also virtually. And that's going to be a permanent, I think, factor or permanent part of the way that we work together. And I think it's a good thing, my opinion. I wouldn't have said this a year and a half ago, but now I think it's a beautiful thing because I wouldn't be able to be here tonight with you. These are members of the Philadelphia chapter. Those other ladies on the beach were Long Island. If you want to send a picture of your chapter, I would love it. I want to go through just a little bit that we haven't published yet, but I'm going to share with you some work the board has done around our beliefs. And this is going to be an important kind of adjunct to some of the other things that we've been creating. One belief is that we believe that mature women's life experience has unique value for society. And this organization we're part of is a platform for our voices. So what are we going to do about that? Well, we already have published a blog. We have several new blog posts coming in this week. And we're going to really, as we get going with PR and marketing, we're going to start placing women at conferences and become a resource for journalists. And I have to say, that has already happened. The day after we launched our website, I got a call from a journalist at Bloomberg who said, and she got to me through the press link that was on the website. My name was there, of course. And she said, I'm writing a piece about the difference between Omicron and the beginning of the COVID lockdowns. And I was just wondering if you have anybody there who could talk to me about, are they going to more peer groups in person, or are there special interest groups meeting more in person now than they did a year and a half ago? And I was like, what? Like, how do you even know this? But she had educated herself on our new website. So that was a really good feeling that it's understandable to people. The second belief is we believe that diversity in all its forms brings a richness of perspective, and we actively work for it. We have established already in the action side a committee. That's a diversity committee. Carol was very active in getting that going. And we're also, because diversity has to do with ability as well as lots of other things, we're going to continue to keep our eye on how do we make it possible for all members who want to engage with TTN to do it. A belief here, as a member-driven organization, we believe that every member has important knowledge and skills to contribute to the TTN community and to the larger world. We wanted to say every member has to give back. We didn't think we could say that, but we are going to do a lot around recognizing our volunteers and also promoting the beauty, the happy things that come from being a volunteer. And chapters, I'm gonna establish some kind of working groups on different topics. And one of the working groups, cross-chapter working groups, will be about volunteers. How do you get volunteers? How do you keep them happy? How do you make their work meaningful, et cetera. And so you can share ideas and get, kind of best practices going. And the last part is that we believe that TTN has a role to play in helping members deepen their understanding of emerging individual, social, environmental issues. And what we are is about education there. We're not an activist organization, of course, but we do provide education, and understanding whiteness is one, or unpacking whiteness, which I know a lot of you have been through, is one of our programs, but we'll have more. Does anybody have any comments before I'm just going really fast? Anything you want to say so far? Nope. Okay. Then I will go to my last few slides. That's our logo. You've seen it. It's what we tried to do with it is to represent this idea of community. And, we had our shooting star logo was created, I guess, before the anniversary. And it really felt, that logo felt like, a woman finding a new way of being after, getting to a certain stage of life. When we wrote the purpose statement, though, what came through was really community. We're here because of other women. So that was kind of that individual kind of experience. Logo didn't make sense anymore. So we created this one. And the idea here is each of those rings in our mark are, they can represent chapters working together in a national organization. They can represent different parts of life that come together into a whole experience. They can represent almost anything. But what you'll see there is none of those rings actually ends. Each one links into the other, which is really a strong symbol of our community. We tried to emphasize the word network more than transition. And we underemphasize the, because the shouldn't have as much prominence in a name as ours used to. So that's the logo, which you've seen now. I can't believe, Carol, we were keeping it a secret, or trying to, for how many months? 3 or 4. Some of you who are coordinators have seen a brand book, which we've just distributed. I think Friday I sent it around. And it kind of outlines everything about our new brand. And this financial management guide, for any of you who are, Donna, you'll be this, and everybody who is a user of a bank account or treasurer will be getting this tomorrow. Tomorrow, Tuesday? Yep, getting this tomorrow. And then we plan to, around the AMS, send out a comprehensive guide to using the association management system sometime at the end of the week. So this is my last slide, and I just wanted to just focus for a minute about, all of these things, like I said, are foundation. They're a way to get us into the year 2022 with our systems and our look and feel and our messaging and everything else. What we want it to be right now. All of it will be always changing. I think brand and everything else should be a constant process. But this year, God, we're in 2022. We are going to really focus on these 3 things. One of them is marketing. And we've got a lot going on there, just waiting for our new website to be live. There's going to be a marketing toolbox, which I'll be sending out probably next week. I just want to give everybody a breath, because I feel like I've been spamming you with all sorts of things. But it talks about how to get the most out of your Facebook page and LinkedIn, and it's really, really rich. And we'll be doing PRs. Our national marketing activities will really click into gear in March, when we start doing little ads, cheapy ads, but effective on Google search, when people are Googling, and little ads will come up, stuff like that. Programs is something that is I think we were already talking about, it's critical. I mean, that's our product line, our programs. People come here to do stuff. And the way that we had a working group in last May, I think, cross chapter working group, and we have always said programs, and I probably shouldn't have used this word right now, because what we said is we use that so generically that it's hard to even tell what it is we're talking about. So what we're saying is these are offerings, and we have 3 types. One is small groups, which is peer groups and special interest groups. Another is workshops, and another is events, and that's our offering. But under this program's heading, one of the things that Jill and I will be working on a lot is, how do we offer more things at a national level that chapters can use without having to always invent everything locally? Because you want to do that. It's great to do that, but it's a lot of work. And so we'll collaborate with all of you to develop more workshops, a speaker series, etc. And also a lot of chapters have developed very cool things inside their chapters that then could be supported nationally and offered elsewhere. So this is a huge collaborative thing that I'm very excited about. But the more programming we have, the better, the more we're going to be known out in the world. It's going to help marketing. It's going to also help member experience. And member experience, we have a membership committee, which we haven't had before. I don't think we ever have had we, Carol? No. It's something, it seems to me, just looking at TTN, we've taken for granted that we know our members and, we take care of them. But in the past, we mostly took care of members locally, but we're learning so much about members that's applicable across all the chapters that we should really pay attention to. And so we're going to be looking at why members come, and why they stay and why they don't stay, and doing more of the things that are why they come and why they stay, and then trying to eliminate some of the don't stay things. So it's a very kind of simple process in a lot of ways. I've been involved in this my whole career, but it's super important to just keep your eye on it. And some pieces of the membership committee will be looking at, okay, so what does that mean for our youngest members? Because we say we're for women over 50, but really, as we know, our members aren't in their 50s or even early 60s. We're much older than that. So let's look at this. Are we for women in their 50s? And if we want to be, what do we need to do differently? And then there are some members who are, getting to the point where they've been around for 20 years and their needs are a little different. We haven't really thought about that super seriously. I had one member said to me, well, I'm in my peer group and everybody's talking about caring for their aging parents, but I'm the aging parent. I want to talk to somebody like that. I want to talk to women who get me. And so, member experience is like so exciting to me. It's a rich area, and it's going to help us so much to put our heads around this, heads and hearts, I think. So that's my last slide. I whizzed through it because, like I said, I want to talk about you. But any comments or questions, complaints, anything? I've been hearing complaints constantly since we launched the AMS, but by far I'm hearing women who are saying they're really happy at TTN and they're just wanting to reach out to me because they now have my name and email address.
I just want to add one thing while the rest of these gals get their voice, because I know they're very vocal in most cases and willing to speak out and ask questions. But I just want to comment under the membership, you talked about our younger members and our older members, and you also mentioned this under the belief statements, but we will have a very strong focus on how we become a more diverse organization.
Yes.
In every way that we can. And so part of that is figuring out what attracts women of other colors that want to be other races, whatever term you want to use. What about TTN would appeal to them? And I know we've made efforts in the past, and certain chapters have made efforts to reach out to other organizations, and it's just something we have to do very consciously and very specifically to focus on some of the purpose statements and who we are and what offerings we have, because we're really, this is about women, and it's not about women of a particular color or size or shape or ability. So we just have to figure out how to be welcoming in that regard and have offerings that mean something to everyone. So that committee is going to try and figure out what that is, and work with some of the women in our organization who fit that demographic, and any of you who have ideas and thoughts along that regard, bring them forward. So I just want to make sure that was.
Yeah, Carol, thanks. I didn't mean to gloss over that. I think it's because we just talked about it forever at the board meeting, and I thought we'd already done it together. But and you'll see on the website, we've worked really hard to not just show white faces, and in the About Us section, there's statements about how welcoming we want to be, et cetera. But you have to, what is that term? Fake it till you make it. We have to think of ourselves as an organization that's good for all women over 50. And that's what we really are. So it's not a they, we thing, but it's really, as Carol said, how do we, it's a long process. I've been involved in this whole idea in corporate life, and it's not something that you can't change who you are overnight. But one of the things that the diversity committee, when we were meeting with them, or not the diversity committee, but one of the precursors to the diversity committee, it's not that we want to invite other women to our table. We need to set a different table. We need to become a different kind of organization. And that's, to me, that mindset is what I'm carrying around in my head. How do we become that? How do we think that? And it's an existential issue in a way, because it's hard and it's important.
So Pat Snyder, I think you were working on that team, right, with Ellen Bartoldis and some of the other women.
Yes, I think there's a huge interest. Susie as well, although she wasn't on that team. We were both involved with Unpacking Whiteness as facilitators. And there's a great deal of energy for setting a different table within TTN and understanding not just to say you are welcome, but actually create an environment where it's clear that contributions of all women make us a much better organization. That there's creativity and a great deal of contribution that we know everyone can make together. I think sometimes we say we are welcome, but it's on our terms.
Right.
And I think that another thing that's a challenge is that we have grown, at least in this chapter, very organically, friends inviting friends. Well, not all of us in our own friendship circles are very diverse. And so that has made it also challenging. Somehow being with other organizations that include people of color is a natural way to work as allies or understand where they're coming from and meet more people who are diverse.
Yeah.
You can look at our chapter tonight, and this is not a diverse group.
No, most of our chapters aren't. And as I've talked with several African-American members, 4 or 5 recently, they've told me stories about, like one of them has been a member for 15 years. She considers some of her best friends are women that she, sees every week in her TTN SIG or peer group. But she hears racist remarks coming out of their mouths all the time. And it's so, they don't understand that what they're saying is racist. And so we've got, and I've talked to another woman who said, you know, she dropped out because she went to 2 events. She was the only Black woman there, and nobody talked to her. You know, and maybe that might happen to a lot of people, but if you're the only one there, you think that there's a reason behind it. It's complicated. This is really complicated. So anyway.
Yeah, I think
Darla?
your comment, Pat, about, you know, we build organically and it's our own network and we invite our friends. And, you know, if we don't have a diverse network, then we're not going to be inviting them to our meetings. And I think, Darla, you've got an essay or a blog statement from one of our members about her thoughts on that, you know.
Gail Glover. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's on the website now. I hope you
Is it
read
on
it.
there now? Okay.
Yeah, it's there.
You know, it might be helpful because there's so much, I know you got a bazillion things on your plate, but when we come up with like a new thing like that, just to give a shout out and say, hey, if we have a new blog post and go here to find it, because we all get a lot of emails and other stuff that gets our attention. And so something like that might be a great to point people to it so we get more people reading them.
How can I do that? I feel like I'm just spamming our membership right now with all sorts of things, and there's so many other things. Would it be best to send it to somebody in every chapter who can contribute? You know, if otherwise I'll be sending emails almost every day to everyone.
Yeah. What do you guys think? What would you suggest?
Situation, a lot of times in my blog, you have to sign up in order to get information, and maybe just the encouragement to go ahead and join the blog as opposed to having it sent out in a kind of a shotgun kind of situation might also get more specific and not feeling like you're spamming everybody.
Yeah.
It's
So
a tough
followers,
thing to do.
get followers.
That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was just going to say.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Sandy.
I was
Because
thinking the
then-
same thing.
Yeah, then
Right.
people will get notices when you do post something new.
Mhm.
Exactly. When
Mhm.
you first tell people they can sign up, maybe have examples of, here's some of the cool blog posts we've recently had with links to that. If you want to sign up to be on this blog roll, then you just have to do it once and you get.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I will do that. It's some of things we want to do are impossible in this technology system that we're in. Not everything can happen, but that seems so simple. There must be a way to do it. So let me check it out.
You
A
know,
lot of times, you know, you could just put it out that there is a blog. I didn't know there was a blog. And so if you go ahead and put it out and ask people, then if you're interested, sign up. That's at least a start.
Yeah, that's good. Jill, what did you want to say?
I was going to say that, you know, especially since it's a new system, some people are afraid to poke around and some people, want to poke around. And, you know, sort of like an incentive kind of thing as to like a scavenger hunt. Where would you find a blog on this? And that, like, who was able to do this? Like in your chapter, maybe be able to do something like that.
When I have lessons, when I give lessons on blog, usually I'll just tell something, what do you have that other people would want, and give a free kind of, say, if you sign up, you can get this free. And since you have some new things out there, such as, I love the new logo, you know, maybe that would be something that you would want to put out there, even a sticker, anything.
Yeah,
that,
that's really, yeah.
might encourage people to sign up and get their free whatever.
Good idea. Let's talk about you. Jill,
I was gonna say with the AMS system, you could also have eventually, not right now, but a store where you could purchase things. And it could be a TTN t-shirt or a TTN hat or TTN, whatever it might be, tote bag or whatever it might be.
I agree, Jill. Good job. Yeah. And that's a fundraiser.
Right.
Well, we have tote bags already, which Carol knows. Anybody who joined our donor circle got tote bags with our logo on it. But
Hey,
we can
I
use
have to
them.
tell you, I have to tell you a story about that. So I got my tote bag and I sent Darla a text. I said, I got my bag. Thank you so much. I'm going to take it with me every time I go to Kroger's. So these unsuspecting women will now know about TTN. And so Darla sent me a note back, just like, yeah, that's your responsibility. What I didn't get a chance to tell you, Darla, was a woman on this screen, Jeanette, where are you? Raise your hand, Jeanette. Jeanette McDonald years ago was in line at the customer service desk at Kohl's and got into a conversation with a woman. You'll remember who it was, Jeanette, because I'm not sure who it was. You should join this organization. Oh, it's great, yada, yada. She ended up joining, and I think was it Carol Smith? It's Carol Smith, who's now our treasurer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a small world.
So that would be, we got to get Jeanette a tote bag because she has a certain magic about it.
It's called networking too. When you network, you do that.
Yeah.
Well, we have two versions of the tote bag. One version has our purpose statement on the other side. So if you're carrying one around, you could you can switch it so that people can read this purpose statement. So what can we do? What can I do to be helpful to you as a chapter? I haven't had a chance to really do that. I've been working on these kind of behind the scenes, big infrastructure projects. And now I can really get to know everybody. What do you need from me and from the national organization?
Darla, have you had any discussion in this about the kind of orientation that many women need now to even understand working in groups? They've been very involved in their careers, and they don't understand the positive things that can happen inside of a group, working on projects together and things like this. And I know I have some new neighbors who don't understand the value of that. So I'm wondering I don't know if anybody's done any research or not, but every women's organization I belong to is having the same problem recruiting younger members.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, Mary. I like that. I just wrote it down. Good. Give me more. What do you need? What would help you?
I think when you were talking about the blogs and things, I think everybody could use something like that, whether they're trying to get people involved in church work or organizational work or parents organizations, whatever the case may be. We all have the same problem. And I don't know whether you could do a survey of people that we could then have younger people do and feed all that information back in. I think that it's a problem we all have wherever you're volunteering or working. Mm-hmm. I think that that could be something that several organizations sort of work on together.
In this day and age where everybody is needing connections with someone else because of COVID and several different reasons, I think that there is a great opportunity to gather, especially women, in this situation that we're living in. And if we could figure out a way to gather and show that, hey, this is one way that you can actually see and be a part of something, that would be awesome, because there's so many people in need right now for that collaboration, that talking to each other and being part of something, because it's just yeah, it's so important right now.
I think the COVID whole thing has made me realize how much being with people in organizations has meant to me.
Me too.
Me too. Simply doesn't do it. I can remember in the 80s when people would fight to be room mothers in school because they wanted to be there. They wanted to be important to their kids, share it with them and everything. And now they can hardly get room mothers. So, to do the parties and all that kind of thing. So,
but you know what, Mary? You know why? Because if you're a working mom, you don't think you could do it.
That's
but
right.
My job was where we live, and where my job was right down the street from the schools. And when I realized all those parties or during lunch break,
Sure.
then I signed up for it.
Right.
To be part of it. So I did it for both my boys. I have 2 sons. I did it for both my boys for a few years. Of course, one of them said to me, how come you never did it for me? And I said, do you remember why I was at all those parties? I thought you just liked going to parties. I said, no, that
But-
wasn't why. But that's part of it, figuring out how you could fit things in.
I
And
agree.
that's one of the things with the programs. That's one of the things that I'm tasked with. And I'm also going to be on a committee where trying to bring in people who are still working to try to figure out how you could do it all. Because you know how we all felt guilty? Whenever you did anything for yourself, you felt guilty, even if it was for your health. When I went to Weight Watchers, I felt guilty because the boys were at home and my husband was in retail. And so, like in my mind, because I went grocery shopping after the Weight Watchers meeting, I was able to rationalize that it wasn't all about me.
Communication is something, especially among women, is definitely something that is a void. And I'd love to be able to help fill that.
Yes, and I'm thinking that, we have so few places anymore where we can have women with women. There are entirely different kinds of skill sets, process how things are decided, all sorts of girls versus boys in that. And so many of our kids have had coeducational everything, teams and everything else. I think that there are some real advantages, and I'm glad to donate my time because I feel strongly about what you can get when you work with just women.
Mhm.
I think the last time that I had a strong pull toward women is when I was in a sorority. We won't tell you how many years that was ago.
Yeah,
Which
Yes.
sorority, Sandra? Me too. Which one?
Delta Gamma.
Alpha Chi.
And I'm a Tri Delta, and I had a whole group of women working for me, under me, and people said, how can you stand that? I said, I learned it at the Tri Delt house.
There you go. That's what you do.
But you're right, because women, I am so glad that whatever, the genes, the chromosomes made me a female, because women are unlike anything else, because we're so supportive. We're always there for each other.
Well, I like writing about them. Absolutely.
Right. And one of the things I didn't mention before is I was widowed at 50. And so I belonged to a widows group, and it was about living and being very supportive of each other. We were just part of a meeting, and I'm trying to remember what it was, where somebody put together a whole scenario. It was like a slideshow of all the different things that happened in TTN. Darla, do you remember what that was?
That was in the board meeting. And
No, it
yeah,
wasn't. Oh, was it? Okay. Because something like that could be used as an advertisement. It could be used on TV or something like that, where people see all these things of women doing things together, and it just resonates with them that, that would increase my sense of community.
Historically, women, in different towns, when the men were away, whether they were, they would all get together and they would help each other out, whether it was dyeing things or whatever. And somehow it's become more competitive. Okay, it's like squash that woman who's getting ahead. And that whole cultural thing really needs to be, I remember being single and feeling like all the married women were afraid I was going to grab their husband. And I went, what? No, so there's gotta be a cultural thing that we have to connect to.
well, what do you think about TTN? Are TTN women competitive? Are TTN women trying to put each other down? I don't really see that. Keith,
See that. No, I haven't seen that.
That age, we stop being competitive.
I think there is a certain, I think there is a gravitation toward clicks.
yeah, well, that's human, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of, we like doing that.
I think that the whole unpacking whiteness, and I've been through it 3 times, was so great because it was across the whole, our whole network, across the whole United States.
Yeah.
And it was really sharing and listening to each other. And I didn't get, competitiveness or anything like that from that.
Fantastic.
It was just a beautiful experience
Yeah.
of being able to meet people. I think, more offering more of these kinds of things is wonderful.
That the Whiteness program is a model in my mind for a lot of things. And the main, as all of you have been through it, this, it's based on listening.
Yeah.
The way that it's set up is you learn to listen deeply to other women without spending most of your time deciding what you're going to say to what they said. And, you really get to hear and process each other. And that whole idea is very beautiful. And in peer groups, that happens as well, I think. Not quite in such a rigorous way, but.
Well, I'd say that our writers peer group is that way because we listen very intensely to each other when we're reading. There's a lot of respect when we're reading each other's, work, or we're reading our work and everybody's listening.
Yeah, and I think that emphasis on the small groups, right? I mean, that's one of our offerings, so to speak, right? That you talked about, Darla. And because you can build that bond within that small group, it's an opportunity, like we've always said, it's an opportunity to meet women you never would have met any other way. And you build these bonds through these small groups. And, I somehow, what we want to do in Ohio is, how do we find these women in Ohio, right? How do we find even in Columbus, right? We've been trying to figure out how to expand to more people. And then COVID hit, we couldn't get together. We couldn't have these events that were, so conducive to that. So I guess one of the things we want to think about is, how do we reach out and raise visibility? And what are the ways we can make that happen? And that's where some of the PR that you're talking about, Darla, that you and Jill have been working on with our marketing expert. What are the things that we can start to do, or that you could help us leverage to get out to, like I said, even across Ohio, or pick a city, Cleveland, right? We seem to have a lot of resonance for Cleveland, right?
Got the plain dealer there.
Yeah. How do we get? I mean, it's amazing. I remember, I forget when it was, like 4 or 5 years ago, there was some article that was put in a local paper in Long Island. Now, they did have an event that was advertised as part of it. They got 150 new members as a result of that article and the event that they had, because the women came, they heard the story, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I want to be part of this. But it all started from that newspaper article.
Well, PR is, it's the best marketing in my view, because it's third party, so it has some credibility and it's free. That's, both of those things are really good for us. So, that's one of the things that, as we start up our engine in March, is really to start sending to chapters little stories that they can send to their local paper with, because reporters, the New York Times even, and Bloomberg, we just experienced that this week. They're always looking for stories. And local papers, the medium-sized papers, as most of you know, have been in PR forever. They hardly write any of their own stories anymore. They just pick them up in the various wire services.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of room for it. And this is a time with COVID and everything else where everyone is already writing about this longing for community, this longing for connection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the hottest topic in the world. So I feel like, man, that's our story. We need to be out there as fast as possible with that story.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like a virtual fair or expo, like through many times in our lives, whether your kids were going to camp or somebody was getting married, or, there's these expos and they have all these different vendors for different things. maybe there's an expo, a virtual one, given our situation, that is of groups that people could join or something like that, that we could be part of. Because that would be a definite way of recruiting. You know, when you think of like even colleges, when the kids are going to college, remember there would be an expo and there'd be all the different colleges present. Maybe just doing a little research and seeing if there's anything like that exists. And then another thing that's really good is, you know, when there's a Center for Food Action, I know the Center for Food Action here would have, like before Thanksgiving, different companies and different groups would come and work at it. And then you would have like a t-shirt or something that would say, you know, where you were from. So we would have a TTN t-shirt or something. You'd be at the Center for Food Action. And then you just start talking to other people because you're working alongside them. And you just start talking about your group, because that's how you network and you spread the word. When you enjoy and you think something is of value, you want to tell everyone else about it so that they could share in the value.
Right. So what has worked best for you in finding new members? What's worked so far?
Well, several years ago, we used to do a wine and chocolate event. Obviously, it's just the wine and chocolate that attracted people, but we actually got a letter or an article in one of the local papers because it was, you know, something the woman wanted to feature in her article. And we had 104 people show up at this event. So those kinds of things, like I said, it's been tough because of the COVID situation. People don't want to be, they're concerned about being face to face. So, you know, we might need to think now and summer, right? Two different mindsets for what kind of events we could have, because maybe by summer things will settle a little bit more and people would be okay with getting together face to face.
Yeah, I like wine and chocolate a lot. I like it. I like the idea of it, and I like everything about what you did. And there are, you know, events where people come in, they're attracted by the theme, and then they meet each other like you experienced.
Mhm.
But I think there's still a huge amount of potential to market our Zoom experience.
Right.
You know, that I don't think we should give up on this, because I really think this is a PR thing in many ways, but it's about, you know, talking about what is possible, surprisingly possible through Zoom. And everybody's interested in stories, you know, like personal stories.
Mhm.
So I think, you know, one of the things that I want to do is collect these stories. We did some of that a little bit through the fundraising that we did over the fall. You know, a few
Mhm.
people volunteered to have their stories. But that's always really interesting.
Darla,
Yeah.
I have two thoughts. One is in building on what other people are talking. What about the theme community without competition?
That's nice.
That's
Very
what
nice.
you were all saying. And the other thing is there's a wonderful program called Active Listening, which is done in schools. I don't know, Sandra, did you ever take that? We don't need to start, you know, build something.
That was part of my curriculum.
That I would have thought it would have been, and you would be a wonderful resource, but it is skill building for people who haven't been taught that in classrooms or in their families, and we could all benefit from it. That could be a national program without any trouble.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good idea. Roberta.
Sharon, you joined during COVID, if I'm not mistaken, and you had just moved to Ohio. So maybe you could give us your thoughts on joining during COVID and why you joined, and maybe some insight as to what you may need. And I hope you don't mind, Darla, that I'm asking her that, but
Why would I mind that? That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I didn't
Okay.
know this about you, Sharon.
I was very fortunate to be able to be at that in-person party in Mary's Garden. I think that made all the difference. I mean, I think when you've met people once, it's much easier to go from there into a virtual situation, or it may be possible to do that without that possibility. But you know, but I think it's just, it's an added benefit.
Of course.
If you're able to do that. I joined, well, how long had I been here? I guess I moved to Columbus a year ago, October. And even though I came during COVID is still going on. I think that that's just meeting people, even if it's the continuation of meeting people, has been mostly virtual. It's been a lifesaver. I mean, it actually feels, I'm still in touch with people. I'm Zooming with friends in New York on a regular basis, but it's qualitatively different to know that I am getting to know people who one day I will actually see in person. You know, I especially feel lately, you know, I'm kind of, I thought I was like such a great candidate for, you know, pandemic success because I like the indoors. I know how to entertain myself, but after a point, all I really want to do is go to a restaurant or have a cup of coffee with someone. And this is as close, and it's a really valuable substitute, which again, contains the promise of it becoming that more traditional, you know, face-to-face.
Yeah. I mean, we're
sheer connection. It's the sheer connection that has been so wonderful.
How did you find us, Sharon?
Through Pat. So I have a friend who is one of my closest friends in New York. She had a decades-long working relationship with someone who, with John Schuster from Better Angels, and through him, I met Pat. That was the path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that brought me to TTN.
Mm-hmm. Well, so there's the you know, networking connection thing, right? I'm gonna thank you, Roberta, for the reminder, because Mara not only doesn't live in Columbus, she joined as a national member and found us somehow and has been not only hanging in with us, but said, forget the national thing, I want to join your chapter, which is what kind of got us in this whole thought process of, well, why should we just be Columbus? Let's cover as many places in the state as we can.
Why not? Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like I was thinking therapists' offices as because I found TTN because I went to my therapist had a group therapy like 6-week thing on Willie Bridges' book. And so when I got out of that, I just looked up the word transitions groups online and I found TTN. And I'm thinking that therapists have, especially female therapists, have a lot of clients who have just divorced or gone through a change in their lives, and they don't necessarily know what to do, you know, how to tell them to connect with people. And I think that TTN is a really good way.
We need to, I think that's brilliant. I found TTN because of my therapist. I'd gotten married and moved to Northern New Jersey and didn't know a soul. And I was complaining, and she said, well, one of my other clients, TTN, and I have 3 friends who are therapists, and they've sent the TTN new website. I wouldn't let them send the old website, but this week they're sending links to the new website to all of those women. So how do we reach therapists in Ohio? That's a really good, I love that, Mara.
I'm thinking postcards, people pick up, you know, in waiting areas, postcards, some kind of little cards, something.
Yeah.
You know, I do that at my acupuncture. You know, he's got them sitting out. And I'm thinking that might be a really nice, you know, because we've got a lovely logo, and
Now we've got a website they can go to. I've been holding up on all this until,
What,
but
what
yeah.
about insurance companies? You know how insurance companies have, it's called behavioral health or mental health? You know, maybe.
Oh, yeah, as part of their a corporate health insurance, you can go see a what's the word? I forget what the term is. Yeah.
Wellness.
But EAP was
EAP, that's
right.
right.
But
EAP.
since most of the women wouldn't be in a corporation or anything like that, maybe but they still, well, some of them still have insurance on their own, or even through Medicare, you know, maybe there's on the card, do they do it the same way on insurance cards for Medicare that that has behavioral health or anything like that? Because maybe it's through insurance companies we could get our word spread too.
Leslie,
Maybe we could advertise in Psychology Today, because they reach a lot of different therapists and all over the country.
I love that, or an article on Psychology Today. I think that's a very brilliant idea, and I think we could probably pull that off. We have to think of who are the referrers, you know, and we can't pay for it really very much. So yeah.
I like the postcard idea
Me
that
too.
you could, get, a couple thousand of these things, send them out to the chapters. I mean, I would, I'll take them to Kroger's. No, I would, take them to whatever. I mean, even people I know who are counselors, I'd hand them, 10 of them. We could use, something like that to just
I'm
distribute.
going to design it as soon as I have a 5 minutes. And, it's not even Kroger's. Yeah, put it up on the bulletin board at Kroger.
And churches would be a wonderful place,
Yeah.
Well, if you
AARP.
a bigger audience, how about AARP?
Oh.
They have their little monthly newsletter thing, and you're going to get the over 50 crew because that's where it goes. And maybe you could find somebody who'd write an article about TTN that could go in that. That would be all over the place. And then you could have information of what if you want further contact, you might try those.
So we've got two really good outlets for our articles, AARP magazine and newsletter, and also Psychology Today. We'll focus on those. That's excellent.
And
Wait, is there
Darla,
anything?
don't forget about AMAC, AMAC. That is the competition for AARP.
Okay, and AMAC. I don't know them.
I would be glad to send that to you.
Okay.
I think if we're trying to become more diverse, we need to be thinking of places to put these postcards in the Black community as well. Black churches, for example, maybe Black publications.
Well, AARP is pretty ecumenical, I would say. You're going to get all sorts of people from that because there's no selectivity, I don't think, in sending those, except for if you're over 50.
So yeah, Susie.
Do we have any famous members in TTN that could write an article about?
Well, I'll tell you what, and Sandy, I don't know if you can help with this, but we do have, we had the opportunity to make a connection with Connie Schultz, who is a fabulous, as you know, journalist.
I've already written her name down to see if I can write her a note.
Great. I will. So she spoke at Barb Smoot's Thrive event 2 years ago. And one of our members who is taking a break now, Barb Seckler, she was actually the host for Connie Schultz and introduced Connie to me while we were walking, because we were one of the presenters. Susie, did you have a table? Yeah. Susie had one of the tables for discussion groups. So she was introduced to us, at least at that time, and seemed interested because Connie's one of us in terms of her demographic. So Sandy, if you have a way to reach out to her, mention that event and that we were, part of that event on that day. But she would be she would be an amazing person for us to make a connection with.
Hey, what about Pat Snyder? Wait, what about Pat Snyder? She's our famous person. She writes columns. Pat, write a column about what this wonderful meeting was about. I read your columns all the time.
Me too, Pat. You go.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm putting Pat on the list. Pat, you're on. Pat Snyder column.
Right.
Hey, Carol, you said something, Barb's last name.
Seckler.
No, no,
S-E-
the other-
S-E-C What?
Yeah, our other
Oh,
Barb.
Barb Smoot. She's the executive director for WELD, Women for Economic Leadership Development.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What about, gosh, I've forgotten her name. Help me. She's a member. Darn, I hate this when that happens.
Mary B.
Yes, thank you. What about Mary B?
I thought Mary B, it was her event that Connie Schultz.
I did
Yeah.
too.
I'm sorry. Did I say Barb? I meant to say.
You said Barb Smoot.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It was the Thrive event, and that was Mary B. Yes. And Mary and I have talked off and on over the many years with mutual, support of each other's organizations, and she is a networker extraordinaire.
Yes, she is.
So I'm still thinking about events because of your chocolate and wine thing. I haven't had dinner and I'm thinking about chocolate and wine right now. But I'm also wondering, one of the things we're going to do on a national basis to benefit chapters, obviously, is to have a speaker series that's kind of an elevated speaker series. We're going to call it TTN Talks. It'll happen once a quarter. And it feels to me like, what if you had viewing parties or something like that in local, if you can actually get together, but you could advertise locally or communicate locally that your chapter is sponsoring this thing.
Mhm.
And invite people to come. And we're going to have, I'm budgeting for it. We're going to pay people, budgeting to have famous people speak.
Mhm.
So that's another opportunity somehow that you can leverage, I think, for sure.
Yeah, that would be good.
What else?
Well, I was talking with Sandy the other day about her book that's getting ready to come out. And it seems like there could be an opportunity for some of our authors to be featured and have some kind of event that would discussion panel, I don't know, something where we can actually introduce them to some of the famous people that are members of our organization. So and that could even, and what I was thinking of when I was talking to Sandy was, if we're going to try and do something in another city other than Columbus, Cleveland seems like a good place. And with connections that we have there, it might be an opportunity to do something this summer where we could maybe meet somewhere and have an actual event.
That is a great
And reach
idea.
out to
I'd
those people
love
that
to
we
do
know.
that.
Yeah.
Gosh, all of the relatives could be a part. That would be enough. No, I'm teasing. Yeah.
Who said that?
I'm just trying to come up with
Now, can you hear me
specific
now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm listening to this and my screen gets muted all the time. As I listen to all this stuff, we're talking about famous people getting all of these things. Guess what? Each one of you is a famous people. Each one of you is worth knowing. And I know I have been part of this group for a couple of years, and I know your faces, but I don't know you. And how about if in a situation like this, where we can't all be physically together, how about if we play this game? What was the funniest thing that happened to you this week? Or, tell us about your granddaughter's crazy thing that was making you crazy. My niece gave me for my birthday website thing that pops up every week or so with a question.
And then I'm supposed to answer that question, and you can be as long or short as you want. And then I guess at some point it's put together, but we don't have to worry about putting anything together. We can just share each other with each other, and somebody's statement here will trigger another idea from over there, and we will get to know one another. And then we can develop special interest groups, shall we say, around the people that we have. And then that will pull you into the group. And because of that special interest, you will automatically start talking to other people about it. Maybe not in the grocery line, but if you have a shirt on, that'll help. So, these kinds of things could be done.
You just developed an entire marketing plan right now around it. First, you have the meeting where you get to know each other, and then, okay, I love it. And then you put the t-shirts on. I don't know, I'm not sure where that part happens. Yeah.
Well, I think the best part is getting to know each one of you, what you do, where you come from, what you've done, what miseries you have. We have this writing group that is a real draw for me. And the fun thing is sharing little memoir stuff. And some people have shared some pretty heavy duty stuff. And some people have shared just silly things. And both are great, because they're all part of us. And I think what each one of us is saying, we want to be a part of something. We want to feel heard, and we want to hear other people. And so it has to be kind of a two-way thing. Just somebody famous coming and giving a lecture, that's lovely, that's all right. If it has something to do with maybe one of your special interest groups. But you go and you do that and you say, oh, I heard such and such a speaker and that was interesting. And then, so tell me, what are you doing Friday night?
You know what, Mary Ann, that is such a good idea. Carol, remember that meeting we had when we all started talking about who we were and what we did? And that was one of the best meetings. I remember that one.
Yeah, it was either Sharon, I don't remember if it was you or Sue Garcia joined our meeting for the very first time. Sue's another person that doesn't live in town. She lives out of town. I think it was Sue. And she finally got into the call and we said, well, Sue, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us, about who you are? And then I said, well, let us tell you who we are. And each of us started talking, and it was what I was talking about earlier in this call. All of a sudden, I'm like, well, Nancy, I didn't know that about you. And I didn't, we started learning, just like you said, Mary Ann, we started learning things about each other that we didn't even know from before.
And that's the bonding. That's the thing that causes us to bond. And then if we have bonded, then we can pull in other people with like interests. And it happens. It just happens like a direct flight. To
get that going, I know that another thing on Darla's to-do list is part of the new system is to figure out how we can collect that information about common interests and set up special interest groups even across the country, right? So you have people that have an interest that's common, like you were just saying. Well, let's form a group and we'll all come together and with Zoom and everything, we can do that virtually. We don't have to be in person. So maybe there's a way to say, some kind of, here's some groups that we want to start. Who would like to be part of these? Part of a marketing outreach kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Well, how about like in a meeting like this? We can talk about, each one of us might have a special thing or two that they kind of like to learn more about, do together with somebody else, blah, blah, blah. And then we share just a bunch of these and jot them all down and then find out how many people are interested in this one thing and that one thing. And that might begin a group. How does that work? Does that sound good?
Sandy wants to say something.
Darla, there is a model for this called Pitch to Publish that I'm a member of. And it is just amazing. I have befriended people from Australia. We're all writers, we're all authors, and they're all over this country, Australia, England,
There are a few people that I've talked to from Ireland, and they have groups almost every single day. I have something that I can join and talk to people, and I've gotten to be really good friends. I actually put out, because I go to DC a lot, and I asked them, I said, is there any authors in DC that I would love to just talk to? And we had to do it virtual. And they all popped up, and it was really neat. Now, they have groups together where I'm a woman's fiction writer, and there are horror writers, and there are nonfiction writers, and we have all kind of gotten to know each other through our genres. So if you want to model for something like this, that would be a good situation, and I can let you know who the person who's ahead of it. So you might want to talk to her, but yeah, it is just amazing. And I'm just always thrilled to hear from them and talk.
Thank you. That's a really good idea. I will ask you for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think you hit the nail on the head, Mary Ann. It's finding out what are the things we have in common that we want to share and build relationships on. And
Exactly.
that's a
And
really good starting
who
point.
knows what'll happen? Just before Christmas, I got a Christmas card from somebody, a girlfriend of mine, when I was back having little kids, and our kids played together and we had a wonderful time together, and then we lost contact. Then I got this Christmas card. I saw your picture on the TTN newsletter that we got. Oh, she says, I'm a part of TTN too. How about that? She's in Atlanta, Georgia. So you never know.
That's right.
Isn't that funny? And I had another group I'm a part of, and it's a sisterhood kind of thing. And somehow or other, my girlfriend in Denver found out I was a part of it. And she says, I'm a part of that same group. You're my sister now. I always knew you were, but so contacts, it's just fun. You never know. Life is very interesting.
Well, what you're saying is like marketing 101, isn't it? It's really, you have to have a story. You have to have, you said context. You have to have a thing that people can imagine and grab onto.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're working on right now, is how to do that for your chapter. But I think that makes such sense. Carol, at 7:30.
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
stop?
I think is your head exploding from all the suggestions people have?
I'm loving it. I can't get enough of it. I won't be able to touch marketing for another, at least a month. Not more than a month, but exactly a month, because we've got to finish a lot of stuff around the AMS, and there's a lot of, I won't say clean. Yeah, loose ends, thank you. A lot of things that have to happen to make it all buttoned down. But this is marketing, that is big, important. And your idea of the post, a lot of these things, I have a huge long list here. We've got I've noticed already, the little bit that I know you, I always see Ohio as being a locus for people around the country. Like you have these, when you advertise something like your writers group, women joined from all over the place. You were the first to start doing that. So I think you have it in your DNA or something, that this would really work for you if we just get it going.
We're
reels.
Are a center of trying things out here commercially.
Yes, we are.
And so
Restaurants and everything, yes.
As long as you just don't fly over us, you understand that we have something to give.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that.
Yeah, there are a whole lot of companies that start here, particularly in the food industry, because we're good at, well, I guess because we eat, but we're a good place to try things out. Maybe we're open-minded about stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a wild idea that I've wanted to propose for a while. It's not really marketing, but I can't think of a better place to try it out. I think I've tried it on Leslie. I think there's a huge need for people 50 and over, especially over, to stay in touch with what's going on with younger people, Because if we want to be relevant, we have to communicate. If we want to leave a legacy, we have to be in touch. I would just love to see TTN have a guest columnist who's a younger person who would kind of report for us, maybe through some journalism program. Sandy, you've taught journalism. Have somebody who would kind of be our youth connection and tell us what's hot and what's not. I was volunteering at a school last week, and for the first time I heard about the Gizmo Watch. You guys know what the Gizmo Watch is? I mean, it's really important. These kids are living for the Gizmo Watch, and I didn't even know about it. It's like a scaled down Apple, and they can communicate with their parents. It's more limited in what it does. But there's a lot of stuff going on that we have no idea about. And I'm thinking it could be a win-win for somebody who wants to be our reporter or writer. And it would be a value added for members. I would definitely read it. Because
I love it.
Yeah, right now it's the age, if we have grandchildren or nieces and nephews, we know a little about that age, but we don't have the whole scene. So.
And then once we get that up and going, it's an incredibly interesting story for the New York Times.
My students at Capitol are still keeping me up to date on things that I have definitely lost. And it's only been 3 years since I've been out. So I agree.
Well, keep your ears open, Sandy, for one of your star writers that might want to contribute to a TTN article for us.
Okay, you know, it's really interesting. Megan Shore was just in USA Today, and she's a former student. She runs her own virtual advertising here in Worthington. So, you know, it's amazing, you know, and then there's Kyle Strickland and others. So yeah, I will put it out there and see what I can find.
So Roberta, you had her hand up. I think she had something you wanted to ask or say. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Darla, are you finding that other chapters, and Carol probably knows this too, are having trouble with retaining members during COVID for the last 2 years? That we've lost quite a few members during COVID. And I'm not sure if it's COVID, if it's boredom with Zoom, or if it's something that we're not offering. And you asked how you could help. And I'm just wondering if there's something we can do to retain our members, or if you have ideas or.
It's really interesting because there are chapters who are growing like gangbusters, like Billings. They've grown 25% in the last year. And then there are other chapters who are losing, like you have a little bit, Santa Fe has. And actually that's something that I'm staring at those numbers all the time and thinking, so we're going to get, when I talked about getting groups together, one of them will be about, you know, like, so what's keeping people here and what's making us grow and how can we share ideas? Because there's got to be some excellent best practices in here that we don't all have to invent everything all the time in 15 different chapters. We can start doing some, like this postcard idea is going to be hot, I'm sure. But, you know, and you invented that tonight. So,
you know, just getting to know one another, that's going to keep you here. Because if you actually get to know 3 or 4 people in a group that's 40 or 50 people, that'll hold you. But if you've been in a group for a year and you haven't met 3 or 4 people that really want to talk to you and learn about you and you want to learn about them, you're going to go because it's not inexpensive to be a member. And so people will say, well, gee, and this time, if we can't get together, you know, face to face and, you know, body to body kind of thing, we have to do it this way. You're already not attached. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You're unattached. Yeah. So if you haven't built an attachment, It's
know,
going to be, it's going to be easy to let go because there's not much of anything to let go.
Yeah, one of the things about the system that will help with that, and of course, this is more long-term kind of thing, but tracking who's been to meetings, who's not been to meeting, because when you join and then you don't participate in anything, that's a flag, right? Like you just said, Marianne. One thing we might want to think about, I know Susie and Roberta have been really great working with Donna to when a member is coming up for renewals, making phone calls, but maybe what we ought to start with is looking at our current members that are in the chapter today and divvy up the names and do a what would you call it, a call out, right? Do a buddy system, or just call on those people who are on our list and say, how are you doing? And here's what's going on. And, so, if you would like to be one of those, if any of you on this screen would like to be one of those people that we can, hand out a name to you and just say, let's get in touch and start what you were talking about earlier, Marianne, getting to know them a little bit better and getting, what would be helpful to you? And is there a group you'd like to join? And, do it maybe on a one-on-one basis.
Mhm.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And that's something we could do now. That's something that we could, in the next 2 weeks.
You can do that, start tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, Marianne, I think you're onto something. When I talk to people who are no longer members, their answer to me is, I got out of it what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so what did you want that you weren't getting any more of? And I think my favorite part is when we used to go to restaurants and I could talk to everybody. I wasn't always that into speakers all the time, but I really wanted to connect with all of you. So I agree with Marianne wholeheartedly.
Yep.
Can I
Sharon?
just say something about diversity and membership?
Yep.
A couple of things just occurred to me. Somebody just said something about the fees. I mean, diversity also would include socioeconomic status. So you might want to think about like a sliding scale or a suggested
Scholarship.
fee structure, something that would prevent people from feeling like, oh, that's not for me. That's just too expensive. And the other thing is, while we're trying to become more diverse, I think it just might be a good idea. Like the postcard idea is great, but I think maybe it ought to be designed without photos because people take their cues from what they see. I mean, they're going to see pictures of a whole bunch of white faces. They will just come to that conclusion. This is really not, this wouldn't be for me. So on the way to building that diversity, it might just be a good idea not to include photographs. I mean, there could be, illustrations and text, but it's just a thought.
Yeah, you got to position yourself in the way you want to be. It's a little aspirational.
Yeah.
But you can't, yeah.
I want to say something about the members who've been dropping out, because we've had members and then they are friends with us. And I think they're still like contacting us outside of the group. So they don't have to pay the $100. I know that's like with, I don't know, Anna Crooks, and now Mary Highland is going to be gone. And, she's saying, I'll still keep in touch and stuff, but I don't know what you do about that.
Yeah, well, 3 people from the writers group, and the writers group is a very tight, very open group. We share very intimate details. So Tirza, Anna Crooks, and Mary Highland, all from the writers group, all have dropped out in the last 2 years.
2 years.
Right.
So
it's not always just knowing someone.
Yeah.
Because if the writers group is an example, that's a very poor example.
There are chapters who tell me, yeah, they're having this problem because exactly what you're saying. People join, they Google how to make a friend, or whatever, and they come to TTN, they make 2 friends and they got what they wanted and don't think they need TTN anymore. But the sort of tried and true, it's a truism, it's really the case in marketing, is you lose your customers when they don't use your product. And product usage is the number one thing. You want people to be engaged. Otherwise, they're going to lose interest. So to me, that means we have to always feel new and fresh. And there always has to be something here that draws members in. It can't be the same old, because once they feel like they've already learned something or they've gotten something, then they don't need TTN anymore. They can just do whatever they want to do with people they've met. So I think it's a constant renewal process. Every company, every organization has to do this.
Yeah, so maybe we need more groups. We used to have a wellness group when we went for hikes and things like that. So maybe we need to start more groups, because right now there's the writers group and what was the other one?
No, writers group and writers group. That's it.
The book club.
Aging
No, the
Master.
aging book club, right? The aging book club, and I belong to both. Right, thank you.
You know
Thank you,
something?
Jeanette.
I checked that. I'd like to join that, and I never heard anything, so I didn't know what to do. So that's one of those internal things we've got to look at, you know.
Right. Well, we didn't know. I don't think Ann knows, and she's the head of it. So,
Well,
we'll bring it to her attention.
I'm guessing we might need to start a second one as opposed
Yeah,
to
I think
just-
that's what she was trying to wait and
Right.
see how many
Yeah.
people wanted to be in
So,
another.
so yeah, that could be one we could start. We could also do the wellness. I mean, there's a volunteerism. We used to have a volunteerism group. So I think we just need to put our heads together on what kind of groups we think there would be. But again, starting with a divide and conquer, make some phone calls, find out what people would be interested in doing, and then come back together in a planning session and go from there.
Yep.
So do we want to find out who is interested in being one of those people that calls? Like,
I will.
I will.
I knew you would, Mary.
A lot of takers there.
Ooh.
So if would you, unless you're writing down names, Donna, why don't you send Donna a quick note and say I'm in, and then we'll build a list. Then we can divvy up the names.
That's going to go such a long way. And I can say, you know, since I said this, but my name is all over everything right now. I'm in getting, since the AMS was launched, letters on email from women who just want to tell me their story. And it sort of breaks my heart, you know. They'll just give me, they're just tell me all this stuff. I just want you to know this about myself. And it's just this longing for connection. And I it's so strong. And I think if we can just feed that in a positive way, we've got something really special here.
Darla, I was talking to a psychologist who's part of the Employee Assistance Program at Ohio Health. People want to call. They just want to be listened to. They don't want any advice.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a very stressful environment to begin with. But if you can't do something, you know, get the answering machine.
So I have a question. Who wants to, like, what are we talking about? Like writing up something like, what would it take for you to, you know, what interests you, what keeps you here, we need that. Who's good with that?
Yeah, so when you send your name to Donna and say, I'm in, I'll make some phone calls, give her a couple of things that would be a what do you call it? A talking points, right? Here's 3 questions I think we should ask, or here's a conversation starter when you call that person. Because I think it would be a good way to say, how you doing, general stuff. But a couple of information gathering questions would also be really helpful. So if you got some ideas about that, send that to Donna as well. And then we'll work on a plan of, you know, putting together a project, little task force to do some information gathering.
Yeah, and one of the things would be just checking in and see how you're doing during COVID and all that, and making sure you're not alone and you have somebody to talk to. And
That's great. Yeah, those kinds of things are great.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had one in our synagogue and it went really, really well. And people did bond over it and became sort of friendlier, like closer.
Mhm.
And I think it was really great. I think it worked.
Good,
Mhm.
good.
Mhm.
Okay. Darla, any parting words or anything you want to say as we sign off?
I want to say I love your chapter, and I mean it. You're all so smart, and you're so engaged, and you're so open. And I think, whatever you want to do, you can do. Absolutely. It's a matter of just deciding who you want to be as a chapter. But I really am so committed to giving you resources that you need to make things hum there. And so if you have ideas, send me an email. I read you won't believe how many emails I get every day, but hopefully it'll slow down a little bit in the next few weeks. But I would love to hear, and you've given me ideas that we can use across the whole organization.
I do have a question because I had an idea and I discussed it with Carol and you about starting a national coast to coast writers group, and I don't know what happened with that.
Just didn't get around to it. It's a great idea. Yeah, we just haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay.
It's on the list.
Because
Mara.
I wonder if some of the people in our current writers group would want to also be members of that.
Mhm.
And maybe like, what's the word, a role model or something, so to help.
Yeah.
Carolyn,
start
you and
Sandy,
I
I
talked
think,
about that too. Yeah.
yeah. Sandy raised her hand to be participant or leader or whatever you want to call it in
And
that.
Mara raised her hand to say something.
Mara.
Oh, you're on
You're on
mute,
mute.
Mara.
I would like to be involved in helping with that too, Sandy.
So there you go, Darla. Give Mara and Sandy to Jill and say, we have the seedlings of a national writers group. We can
Okay.
get something going.
I'm writing down all. Okay.
Who else is interested in our group here? Who's interested in being in that writers group, coast to coast? Sandy, Mara, me, and Susie.
Darla, in the chat group, could you
Mary.
put your email?
Yeah. I will. I'll try to give you my new one because I've been using.
Mara, Susie, Mary.
There.
Oh, it is the new
I
one.
can send you Kathy's name so that you have a model of what she has set up nationally or internationally, actually.
Right.
What happened to your little thing? It disappeared.
What
What
little?
thing?
Yeah, it popped up on the screen. It's Darla.Hastings, Hastings, at TTN Women, plural, women.org.
At
Why did it disappear? That's funny.
At TTN what?
Women.
Women.
TTN WOMEN. TTN
If you
Women.
click on the little chat button down at the bottom, you'll see it. It'll
Yeah,
pop
mine
up
showed up
again.
on the screen and then it went away too.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
I do have one question, like just of the membership here. Who would be interested in like going hiking, like walking, say, I don't know, and how often would you want to do it? Susie, my sister, and me.
No, I
And
would love
Darla.
to.
You
There's a
gonna
lot
fly
of
over here,
people.
Darla?
Yeah,
Leslie.
Leslie, yeah. See that, Donna,
raised her
Donna,
hand.
this
Susie raised her
is
hand.
something I think we could do, if we get some phone calls and this is why I'm interested in we can do a Survey Monkey.
Yeah.
Do a Survey Monkey, collect names. And that would be with
I had one point during this meeting that I thought was really perfect for Ohio, and it's gone. But it's just my tired brain. But if I remember, I will send it to Donna and Carol. It was small. It was a small idea, but it could have been something. I've been sitting here trying to remember it. It's useless. It's too,
I
it's
think,
too
I think
hard.
it's wine time, in which case that may free up your clogged brain cells.
Yes, I have to go out and buy a bottle of wine because I'm out. But
I will-
No, that's awful.
crisis.
Thank you so much, Darla.
Oh, this has been
This was
great, real
wonderful.
exciting.
This
Thank
was
you
like
for
the
having me.
best.
Darla, come back and
session.
visit.
I want to. I'm serious. I love your chapter. I can't explain it exactly because I don't know all of you personally, but maybe it's because Carol's my connection, but and Donna. But you're really, I like you, and so I think you're a role model for a lot of other chapters.
Well, I already told Darla if we do some kind of event this summer where we can actually have people face to face, she's going to come out and be one of our guests.
I love that. Oh, I love that.
I wonder if when we are talking to other people who have not been there or whatever, that we talk about this intimate visit that the new CEO came and talked to us and what kind of a great person she is and how much she's interested in us.
Well, that would be true. I don't know about the great person thing, but I mean, I'm interested in it.
Darla, are you
down
going
that
to be
line.
doing this with all other chapters?
I get invited when I do, but the yes, this year I've been sort of in I don't know, infrastructure
lockdown.
building jail, lockdown. Yeah. I've just had this heavy lift of these things we had to invent or change or do. And now, this year I can actually get to talk with everybody and connect all the parts of us. And
Yep.
I can't wait. I just can't wait. I haven't had as much social life as I should have, being in charge of 3,000 women.
I have to say that it's really turned out well because of the new AMS thing and the new website and all the things that's going on. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
Thank
Carol,
you.
the board.
Thank
and
you.
everybody.
Yes,
Yes.
Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had a
Excellent.
crazy time, but it's been great.
It's-
Anyway,
it's-
good night,
it's
everyone.
just-
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Darla.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
We'll
go.
be in touch.
Okay, of course. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah.
Good job, Carol.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice, Carol.
I
Thank you.
just invited the expert, that's all.
Oh,
You need to
that
be
was,
the CEO.
she's really
Well,
she's
that
great.
you attract
Yeah, she is.
insurance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you, I would nominate her for one of the, although all women in TTN I'm learning are extremely strong and resilient, but she has had one hell of a year and pulled together so much stuff. And it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was stuck in Israel during that whole thing.
She's